Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, too many of Britain's jails have become unacceptably violent and dangerous places. That's according to the Prisons Watchdog, who's warned that the death toll is set to rise. Peter Clarke, who became Chief Inspector of Prisons in February, talked of a grim situation becoming worse and said the lack of safety posed a real risk to the government's hopes of improving rehabilitation. Our senior Home Affairs correspondent Simon Israel has more.
This time last year, prisons in England and Wales were described as in their worst state for a decade. A year on, and the violence, the drugs and the injuries have multiplied. In 2015, there were 20,000 assaults in prisons, and of these, nearly 3,000 were serious assaults. There were over 32,000 incidents of self-harm in the last year, and 100 self-inflicted deaths in the 12 months up to March. The numbers are staggering.
The numbers are staggering, and the increases year on year are extraordinarily troubling. Around 25–27% increases in self-inflicted deaths and attacks. These are appalling statistics.
This shows no sign of changing this year, does it?
It's too early to say what the trends are this year, but I haven't seen anything so far in the 6 months in which I've been Chief Inspector of Prisons to suggest that the situation is changing for the better.
It wasn't so long ago Michael Gove, as Justice Secretary, was touring prisons promising radical reform.
Sorry, I'm Michael. I'm the Minister.
But the Chief Inspector says the lack of safety risks all those ambitions, regardless of who is now in charge. His replacement, Liz Truss, says she's under no illusions, but has to face the fact there is no national plan to combat the menace of legal highs.
The impact of these substances are far worse. They're unpredictable. They lead to extreme violence, and we've seen some what can only be described as grotesque examples of self-harm caused by these drugs. There needs to be a really serious and determined effort to stop these.
It doesn't help, though, when jails ignore inspectors' findings, with some failing to implement more than half their recommendations.
It is disappointing that too many prisons do not appear to be taking our reports as seriously as they should. We have seen some prisons where a very small proportion of our recommendations have been met, and hardly surprisingly, those prisons have either deteriorated or certainly not improved.
Next week, there will be another round of stats on prison violence, and they're unlikely to show any improvement. And that is the issue that will dictate the pace of the government's prison reform agenda.
Simon Israel reporting there.
I've been getting away with it all.